And the only people that were playing were people that like their parents were like it was a family thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still very nerdy and no one would really talk about it. But when I learned about it, I was like, I was talking to my first DM, and I was like, I want a dwarf that's part merfolk, and instead of a beard, he has a big fin.
Ah.
And I was like, can I do that? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I want a spell, but I want to use my sword. Can I have a spell that's like an ice ball with poison inside and just like throw it? And I was pretty much describing like a ice knife with poison in it. And he's like, yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
I was just hooked. Like nothing I've ever heard of just told me, yes, be creative. And then when I found out you can make a world, like monsters, everything like that, I was just, yeah, I was sold.
I'm glad that you had a DM like that, as I think that there are people out there who had their first experience was with a dungeon master who might have been overbearing or controlling, and oftentimes said no instead of no but,
Yes.
or just went no. The rules don't give me an ice knife with poison in it, so I'm not going to run it in the world. If it was meant to be, then it would be in a book, kind of a thing.
Oh,
And
definitely.
it's good. It's good that you had the opportunity, and that your parents opened up and allowed you that opportunity to explore that as well, because
Oh, definitely.
that's true. I've in my store. I've told this story before. I've experienced something like that. Now I'd always been ready to have a protest of some kind outside the store, because I mean, look, board games, D&D, as you're talking about the Satanic Panic, people thinking that this is actually going to be summoning demons into the real world. Um, and so I was always ready for it as a store owner. Um, but I did get an instance one summer. I had some Mormon missionaries in town, and they stopped by the store, and very polite. They weren't there to evangelize. Young guys, I mean, as you would normally find that as they're sent out on their missions. And so I struck up a conversation, got to talking with them, because why not? They're human beings. I don't judge people. I get bikers with tattoos everywhere coming in black leather, and they're the absolute sweetest people ever. What am I gonna cringe at people in town, visiting town on their mission? Nah. And so this was during the height of actually of the World of Warcraft trading card game. When you could get like the Spectral Tiger loot and all that other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so awesome guys. They actually got to relax a little bit, and just we're talking WoW, talking cards, and they would come in and buy some packs here and there, and after a while, they came back, and they indicated like they had all their cards. And I'm like, oh hey, you guys here to play? What happened? And they said, well, no, um, our bishop thought that this was devil summoning, because there is like there's like a demonology sort of aspect to WoW, which is like studying the occult and whatnot. And despite this being a card game based on a video game, um, there was a thought with the church elder that this was inappropriate behavior or unholy behavior. And so their bishop forced these three guys to sell all their cards back to me. And obviously, I mean, as a store owner, I can't give full value back on the cards, because I mean, that's a cash immediately out of my pocket, but that's also how do I turn them around and pay my own bills as I resell the cards. And so,
Yeah.
like, I saw the looks on their faces, and these guys, they weren't like being super edgy, like, yeah, demons or anything. There were three normal dudes who were living their life. They're out having a little bit of fun while they're on their kind of I mean, I don't want to call it a working vacation, but their mission, like they're in a different city, they're exploring, they're learning, they're teaching, etc. And I looked at them, I said, You know, for the vast majority of these cards, I normally wouldn't offer anything. But I'll tell you what, guys, like, you've been coming in here, we've been talking, and I feel bad for your circumstances. And I'll do the best I could, and I ended up buying all the WoW cards back off of them that they bought off of me. And I tried to be as generous as I could so that, you know, both parties were able to get something. And I had hoped that, you know, even after that event that they would have come back. And unfortunately, for the rest of that time, and honestly, ever since that point in time, I have never had anyone from that faith, at least openly, you know, with the name tag and the uniform and all,
Mm-hmm.
come into the store. And I honestly felt bad, and I felt like I was missing out on meeting a bunch of people with other life experiences to tell, and, you know, just hearing about other people's lives and whatnot. I mean, obviously there's the underlying fact that, hey, it could be business, but that's redundant saying that, you know, there's an opportunity for business in a store.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I felt like I missed something as the store owner, after they ended up selling their things as they were forced to do, and then I never saw them again. And so I kind of wonder to this day, you know, they're out there in the world. I mean, I hope they're happy and healthy, but, you know, what did that experience teach them? You know, did they go on to maybe play D&D, or, you know, did they just stick to World of Warcraft, or, you know, what's happening?
Oh yeah. Actually, I can talk quite a bit about that topic. I actually am uh, quite around those people a lot. So,
Mm,
um, but yeah, there are pretty much they do live very strict lives and stuff like that. But you will not find when you get limited on so many things that you can do. There is a very rich and living nerd culture
yes.
um, inside of it. So they very much love that type of stuff. Um,
There are some community, I guess, taboos, you know,
yeah.
or things that you shouldn't talk about with other people, but, you know, with your family, like what you were talking about. You know, the family will play, but they might not go to a game store or tell other people about the hobby, kind of a thing.
Well, and the thing is there's kind of two levels of it. You were talking about missionaries.
Yes.
Yeah, they're under very strict rules. So I can see how that could be a problem. But most people, if you just run into uh, like families and stuff like that, depending on the family, of course,
Yeah.
you'll meet very open and friendly individuals that, like you said, have a very unique view and actually are very interesting storytellers and stuff like that. So you get to see all sorts of sides. And yeah, learning about a culture enriches your game and other people's games as well.
Yeah, you know,
Um,
even if it seems foreign to you, or it's nothing that you may personally practice, hearing about the lifestyles and the beliefs of other people can give you so many extra ideas.
oh
And
yeah,
I'll tell you, it is such a um I'll say a mixed blessing, although I think that carries kind of a suspicious, or a 51 to 49 negative to positive connotation. Um, it's a mixed blessing to work in this industry, because I have met so many different people, and to see, for the most part, the voluntary interaction between people that may never have otherwise met or wanted to meet each other is absolutely baffling. When and you know, if we even want to touch on religion, because I think we're keeping things in context, so we're not, you know, we're not stepping on any toes or anything like that. um just in my personal, like, my private D&D group that I was running for here, it is absolutely wonderful and fascinating when you have a very devout Catholic, you have a very devout Protestant, kind of like a non-denominational but just not Catholic. Um, then you have an atheist, and you have someone who's maybe just more in the agnostic range. And we're talking, I mean, not like, pardon, I don't know how you could somehow be like a solid agnostic, because that's the whole, that kind of defeats the purpose of, you know, searching.
Mm.
But you have these people of all of these different beliefs, and they come together, you know, willingly. They interact with each other wonderfully to then play a character who fully believes in and worships in a multiple god pantheon. And
Yeah.
and
Well,
it shows that, you know, we can appreciate each other in or out of character, or we can make the differences, right? Where my life is X outside of the store, but inside the store I'm Y, let alone if I'm playing in my character where I'm Z. And it's so wonderful to have so many different people all getting together voluntarily. And I keep saying that because that's important. If you force people together, that can oftentimes be that can lead to tension or disaster.
mm-hmm,
But
very much
that
so.
willingness for people to come together on a regular basis and talk to each other and understand that they have different political beliefs, that they have different religious beliefs, that they have different, you know, levels of education, that they have, that they're different ages. I mean, when you see a 40-year-old and a 14-year-old sitting across from each other at Friday Night Magic, and they're interacting with each other like peers, instead of, you know, the older guy going, whatever, kid, you don't know what you're talking about, and I'm never gonna play with you. But instead, they're playing Magic like, you know, reasonable people. It absolutely just melts my heart. And hey, Coffee Cat, by the way, thank you for the raid. Welcome for all of you who came over here.
Also, yeah, like yeah, that's two very like interesting points. Like just from religion uh based things like the Greek gods, that has influenced storytelling
Oh, for
like
sure.
so deeply, and it's really fun to mess inside of that lore where back in the day that was a very serious thing, and it just brings a very unique view, right? And then also that what you touched on with cards, uh yeah, I played more Magic than I ever probably should have. But when you get into like the higher echelon of like gaming and Magic the Gathering, you'll run into people that don't even speak the same language,
Mm-hmm.
and you know the cards so well, it doesn't matter what language it's printed in or anything like that, and you can still play a game with just slight hand signals, this and that, like, and everyone knows exactly what's going on. And it's really amazing that you're breaking the language barrier.
It's yeah. I'm. I mean, I'll just be redundant and say it's absolutely wonderful and fascinating to have this kind of community and unity. Now, of course, passions do flare up, and, you know, arguments happen, or, you know, things turn into like a store versus store, you know, with culture or prices or content or whatever. Um, and I will say that for me, drawing on my own real life experiences and how I got into this, because I don't know if I've ever really talked about this too much on stream. And, you know, with actually with us being very close to you know, to Father's Day and whatnot, um, at least as of this broadcast, if anyone's watching this in the future on YouTube, then, you know, whatever time of year, Merry Christmas or whatever it is for you. Um, I got into this business because of the death of my father. And I mean, that instance alone was not, I mean, it wasn't pleasant at all. Actually, I'll take a couple steps back. Um, I graduated in '04 from my undergrad, and so I came back to my hometown to start my own insurance practice, as that's what I was familiar with. And I had my father as a, you know, I worked in his office. I helped him make spreadsheets, do some new planning and whatnot. And I was able to take that practical experience to school. Now I could take my school back to practical experience. So that was in '04. And so I was starting this up, getting my licensure, working with him, and then eventually splitting off. During the
Mm-hmm.
course of that time in '05, a high school friend of mine just graduated from where he got his undergrad, and he moved back to town, and the two of us were big old nerds. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we would play video games together and talk, D&D and whatnot. And we discovered that there was a store in town called the Hero Zone. And and so we decided to go explore there. And so the two of us went down. We met the owner. It was a really cool place. Just moved downtown. Nice bright paint on the walls and everything. And I had experience in running an anime club because I was the co-founder of the one down at my school, as well as I was doing a lot of other organizations. And I figured, well, hey, this would be a good chance because you could meet a lot of people about in your age range. Pardon me, at a game store. And I said, well, not just games, but how about anime? And so we got that going. And unfortunately, in the same year, my father was diagnosed with having a brain tumor, and so from part of '05 until July of '06, he was around for most of that time, and he was still pretty lucid up until the end. And of course, there I was. I helped to take care of him a little bit at the end. Fortunately, we were in a position where we could have some medical staff be on hand. As things were getting pretty rough, but family was very helpful in that too. And so, I mean, I was working, trying to build my client book and still work and do that. I had my social life through the game store, and then at the end, it was very very tough. He passed away, and I said, you know what, this is just maybe I can always go back to it. I mean, I still have my licenses and everything. Maybe I can go back to it, but right now this is too tough because this is something I trained under him. This was something that I had hoped to do. To work with him to build my own book of business and to show him that I could be independent and successful and to kind of not in a rebellious way, but kind of split off the tree and grow my own strong trunk, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it was very tough. It was very distracting, and I said I can't do this anymore. And so I made sure that my clients went over to another very good broker or insurance agent. And so I said, all right, well, I have a little bit of money in my pocket uh, that was left to me by Dad. And at that time, the Hero Zone was looking to expand out to a city called Bowling Green, Ohio, which is south of Toledo, still about an hour away from where I live. And it's also a college town. And so the owner of the Hero Zone was talking with the owners of a place called the Gamers Lounge out in Bowling Green. And I said, well, can I get in on this? Can I invest in the Hero Zone if you're looking to expand? This is something I have the business knowledge. I'm already familiar with your model because we'd sit and talk as I was the one running this kind of club out of the area, and so I invested my the money that was left to me into the business, and so things that was around September, about September of '06. And
Okay.
by December of '06, we had to close the Bowling Green location. And that was for several different reasons. One of them was that same summer, a couple other game stores had opened up, and it turned partially into a price war, and we weren't willing to cut our own throats in order to compete with the entertainment dollar of college kids. Which also, keep this in mind if any of you ever want to get into this business and you're in a college town, entertainment money is also stuff like beer money and things like that. And so we said it's going to be easier to close that store and to withdraw out of Bowling Green and let the other stores continue on than to have both stores die. And so we made those arrangements. The other store closed. And I'll tell you, Technatron and anyone else out there listening to me ramble on here, um, I can't even call it bittersweet. The sad result of that was that the other stores had cut their own throats to the point where they bled out, and then there were no stores in Bowling Green at that time. And so it was like a war of attrition for nothing. I mean, fortunately, we pulled out, so we still survived, but in a reduced capacity. And what happened was effectively all of that, any of the money that was left to me that I just invested in this store just turned into paint on the walls and a lot of stuff that just sort of evaporated, just up and blew away. And then, in the timeline of things, now we're talking from 06 to 08. And we're approaching some hard economic times. And in 08, the original owner of the Hero Zone decided to step back. And he said, "You know what, Matt, I respect, everything that you've put into this, your time, your knowledge, and especially, after your father passed away, you believed in me in this store so much. So aside from a little bit of inventory that I'd like to take with me, I want to hand you the store, and you don't owe me anything. All the rest of the inventory, the fixtures, and everything is yours." And so we made an agreement along those lines, and so I reopened the store as the Hero Zone because we changed it to the Gamers Lounge in 08. Okay. And from there, well, it's now 2019, and so for 11 years, I guess technically I could say for like 9 years it was just under me. And we went through some tough economic times, some really tough bill paying times. If any of you out there are in a business, you may get in that position where you got to put your bills into a hat and draw which one gets paid for the month. And I'll tell you, if you owe sales tax, pay that bill because the state's going to be a real SOB about it. And they're also going to do things like send you a letter saying, well, we estimate that you owe like $1,000 a month in sales tax. So, if you don't owe a bill of whatever, like, well, I'll just $5,000. If you feel like you don't owe us $5,000, give us a call. And of course, those letters are sent out to make you call because you're like, I wish I owed $1,000 in sales taxes. Man, I'd have record sales every month, especially in a tourist town. Where my summer is like half the business, and then the other 3 months are the other half, or the other 3 quarters. Anyway. So, I mean, ups and downs all around. I mean, I went on to meet awesome people. I had some really trying times. Stuff in my life happened for better or worse. During that time, I ended up going out and getting a master's degree. And so there's plenty of stories in the interim. And then we come to the event of another death. And it was almost like my father passing away again, where my landlord at the time, who owned the building, he actually knew my grandparents and would tell me stories about them, which is great because I never really got to hear too many stories about them or what was going on in the area with business. And so he passed away in the spring of, it would be 2016. And the family sold the business to some developers in the downtown here. I didn't know what they were going to do, if they're going to kick me out, increase the rent, let things continue as they did, or, who they are, what was going on. Mm-hmm. And at the time, now we actually talking about bringing things full cycle again. The former owner of the Hero Zone had gone off and kind of been doing his own thing. He reopened somewhat of another hobby store. They did some other things with video games for a while too. And he was looking to renew his lease. And this timed up with the fact that I may very well not have a place for the store, depending on what these new owners would say whenever they got a hold of me. And so we actually made a deal where we took our 2 stores and we pineapple penned them together into an entity. And now this is in its 3rd year in the new location. In the wake of these other bad events, life events that have occurred, and just all the things that have happened. Now that I'm looking back on it, geez, the conversation started with, think back to what was the instance where you were inspired to be a DM, yeah. And so we're using these as timelines, and so here I am now. The store is pretty well taken care of itself. I mean, I still go down there. but I don't have the same role as I did before. And that's then allowed me to now come online, and I've, if not for all those circumstances, you know, all the tragedy, the loss of my father or other people in my life, for the triumphs in it and everything, I wouldn't know you, Technatron. I wouldn't know Bubonic One. I wouldn't know Silver Pirate, Coffee Cats, Volvo. Who else is in here? Princess, uh, Willow Nightwolf, Cold Wizard. That's why I'm calling y'all by name, because you're here, and I appreciate it. Kitty Bird the Shiny, Pelicans, Nell Shear, and Hark, and anyone else who's lurking. I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And Nell Shear, I appreciate the sentiment. And I'll tell you, I'd love to have my dad back. I would have loved to have been, you know, to have impressed him with obtaining my master's degree and the other things that I've been able to achieve in my life, or even in my down times to be able to get some counsel. But you know what? My goal was to try and grow and be a better person and to stand on my own. Um, and playing D&D was a part of that as well, as it was something I picked up in college with the people in my hallway, and you know, I got to do it, and it's been an amazing journey itself. And I'll tell you, Technatron, a lot of the things that I run or a lot of the things that I include in a game have been drawn from all of these experiences, and obviously not just the good, or even I could just say obviously not all the bad either, but all the life circumstances, the stories, the people I've met, the bikers in black leather and, you know, in chains, the you know, the Mormon missionaries who visited me for a while, the international employees from Cedar Point who find their way into the store, the people who just live downtown. You know, they were in town, they would stop in and say hi. The young kids, the older people, you know, the families that came in, and as I've seen people grow up in the store, it's all just been an amazing part of everything that we can include as a DM. And when I say we, I'm expanding it to all of you. All the things you've had in life, you can include in your game, and you can use the things that have helped form you, your beliefs, your philosophies, your personal life circumstances, and you can manifest it in wonderful ways that can help enrich other people.
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, it just the fact alone, just with me personally, like growing up and being in type of game stores and stuff like that, just the fact that I know at any time in my life, anywhere I go, if there's a game store, I can find friends. And not many people can say they could just pick up anywhere and just go make a connection. But as soon as you learn the lingo, like, and like you're around that, that wall breaks down really fast. And
It does, and it should be as you say, Technotron, where anywhere you go and there's a comic in the game store, that should be a place that you know you can find friends. And I'll tell you, it absolutely pisses me off to no end when I learn that there are stores that abuse that kind of faith or trust.
definitely, but there is a look that you do pick up on pretty quick when you know that they're either really stingy or they're really nerdy, and you can find that out with just a few minutes. But people are kind of hesitant. But once you get through that wall and you like they know you know what you're talking about, usually it's all fun and games from there.
It is, and I'll tell you, Pelicans. You know, you said that you're really glad you found the stream. I am as well, and not just because you have that nice green guacamole by your name. I see this physically play out as well, where for as accommodating and friendly as your local game and or comic store should be, where you can find a game of D&D, a game of Friday Night Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon League or whatever, it can still be very tough for some people to walk through that door. because of the uncertainty, or what if people don't like me, or what if I say something embarrassing, or I don't know all the rules. And so I'm not saying this because I'm treating people like children and applauding them for stepping through a door, but for people who do come into the store, you I hope all of you understand you should be treated with respect. You should be treated like a human being who is here because you want to participate in the community that's being offered, which should be an honor to anyone who's behind the counter at wherever you go. Because you could go anywhere, or you could not even show up, and yet you're giving them a chance. And that same philosophy is true on Twitch. You know, you see the list of people in a game, or in this case, we're listed somewhere on the D&D page. Like, I'll take a look real quick, and you see all of these channels that you could go to and watch, and yet you all took the chance to click on this channel and to stick around and see. You know what? I don't have a bunch of webcams up. We're not always playing D&D. We do it on Tuesdays, and I'd like to do it a little bit more in the future. That's a discussion for a little bit later in the summer, though. And yet you took that opportunity. You saw this, you saw this dude with some crazy facial hair and, these weird white headphones and, a bunch of PDFs on screen, and you're here. And ever since you're here, I honestly hope that you've always felt welcomed. You've always been able to participate and feel like you're a part of something bigger, something more, and that you know that I appreciate you being here. And especially Technatron, you're stepping up and being a guest DM. You're giving your time to be here with me as well. And so I want to make sure I'm thanking you yet again for doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me. It's an awesome opportunity because, yeah, like, to tell you the truth, like, one of the things that I enjoy more than anything, and it I don't know how I can achieve it, but I would love nothing more to be in a think tank of just nerd. Like, that is my jam.
Well, I suppose we've had a bunch of rambling stories, but all this is a part of, I guess all this is a part of D&D still. To sit down and talk about these experiences and stories, and they definitely get our imaginations running, and not just our imaginations, our feelings, our logic, or if you want to break it down, our logos and our pathos. And so, since we're all here, there's 19 of us, at least according to this little eyeball thing I'm looking at. Do you want to start talking about bringing this one shot together? I mean, speaking of a community effort.
Oh yeah, totally. Kind of over the last 3 days now, we're on the fourth day. I think we have everything that we would need to make a really legit one shot that we were talking about, or even a way to expand into a campaign or anything that we would really want it to go to. It was very interesting, even on the first day when we started doing this, how easily it almost went out of control, and we're like, oh, and this is how you get to level 20 now.
Yeah.
Like, that path was just like so opened up, and that's when you really know that you're seeing the process through. And now we have, like, through the days, like, kind of my tools for building up campaigns and making them more interesting. You keep on bringing up Tome of Annihilation, and I went through that one. In most modules, like, I'll be in like, grab inspiration from and stuff like that, but that one is actually very special, and I think a lot of people uh don't realize it. For the fact is the beginning of it, it gives you a place that where the city essentially exists, or Cholt, in Cholt, I should say. But it says, now get from level 1 to this one, and you can now start the tombs this way. But it doesn't tell you anything but a few random encounters. And what a lot of people don't understand is like back in the Greyhawk days and stuff like that. And when Gary Gygax was writing stuff, they didn't tell you what to do. They were like, here's the world, here's the setting, this is the bad guy, now get there. I don't care how you get there, but figure it out. And what's really beautiful about that is it's a huge opportunity for like new dungeon, I would say new to intermediate dungeon masters. Those beginning levels, look at all the monsters in the book and everything like that and make your own custom little one shots to get them to the next level. Make it your own little game inside of a game. And using these principles, out of all the modules that I've seen, I think that would be the closest one in 5e to really let you kind of have all the pieces that you need to, but also let you free. Even though it is a very deadly module, but
It
that
certainly is.
yeah, but that beginning, like you can make a whole uh grung situation. You can make odd temples that no one has seen. You can have monster hunts. Dinosaurs are everywhere. It's very good for kind of what we've been talking about. Um,
Well, then, shall we talk about the setting of the one shot as we've been discussing it? I'll bring up
yeah.
the photo that we were using for inspiration.
Oh yeah.
It should be right around there. We go. So I will. I've already done a lot of talking tonight, and I thought I was gonna be good, where I wasn't gonna be doing a lot of talking. I'm gonna leave this over to you, and then I
Oh,
get on a rambling story. Um,
uh, yeah. But the thing is, it's always a pleasure hearing about those things. We get to see an aspect of something
for
that we might not necessarily know or understand. Like I imagine a lot of us nerds would always love to either own or be a part of a game store.
uh, I'll tell you, Technatron. Maybe that could be a whole other week of lectures or guests or. I'll I will do my best to convince you not to do it, but that's because if you can endure it, that means that you can. But if I've succeeded by talking sense into you that you can't, then I've saved you a lot of heartache. So in either case, you actually win.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, jeez. All right, so I have a nice blank. I have a nice blank worksheet out. Let's plan a one shot. And now, for all of you out there in chat, Technatron may very well call out to you for answers or inspiration or what would you do. So please, listen along and comment if you're able. But Technatron, take us through with the things that we've discussed, and I'll bring up whatever relevant documents or things that we've made along the way as well. Take us through a Technatron one shot. What should we consider first or plan first? And I will be your secretary, and I'll transcribe what you're saying here.
Okay. The first one that I always go with is we have the image or the inspiration in this case. So, which is the dragon head that's on the side of the cart. So, my first question is we would go straight into the three whys. Like, why is this cart here? And we've already kind of went over uh, that it could be a hero had slayed a dragon, was bringing it down, and had to like go somewhere else. Maybe they were kidnapped or something like that. But I would really want to know the reason why uh, it like this is on this side of the road. So that would be the first thing that I would set up. And then after that, we were going really heavy on saying that there needs to be a MacGuffin. Um, so I would explore what that is, and in this case, it's pretty self-explanatory. A detached body, I mean, a detached dragon head seems pretty solid as a story arc item that can. I don't know many players that wouldn't like to have a story where up in their inn there's a dragon head, and it had like an epic tale behind it that they were totally involved with. Because a lot of the times, and I'm getting off a little track, but you can go see like a trophy uh, animal or a statue and stuff like that, and it can be impressive. But the thing that's even crazier is the story behind why it was created. And being part of that could be very, very uh, big. And for players to be a part of that, I could say, why not have that be the MacGuffin? Um,
Okay.
but anyways, I would ask to the chat. We were kind of messing around with why it had fallen off, and why it was left. We talked about it was a hero that needed to either get away or something happened to him. But if I remember right, also we didn't go into that. We just kind of left the cart there, and we were waiting for the story to explain itself. So maybe in this case, if we describe the beginning, like what happened just 10 minutes before, would be how we could bring the story full circle. Um, because if it was a hero that had to get away or something like that, and who knows for what reason, but if we know that, and then our players pick up and they don't understand how it happened, we might have a very strong therefore and but situation. And that was like the other thing that we were talking about pretty in depth. And also to the chat, like we can come up with reasons why the head's there, and it could be a trap, it could be baited, it could be all these things. And I think really with what we did see in chat before is they had way more solutions than we even needed. It went way beyond 3 Ys.
Yeah, we had multiple reasons why every step could exist.
Mm-hmm.
Because we started with a dragon head and a cart. Why? It sparks a regional political crisis. Why? There's open land to claim now. Why? And because there was a great source of power. Were kind of the sentiments that we're drawing through.
Mm-hmm.
It bled into then a war. It wasn't even just a political crisis between the humanoids. It was goblins and kobolds were going to be warring with each other over this, and that could cause a bunch of disaster that people weren't really expecting. And meanwhile, the humanoids, or at least the party members, are apparently being sucked into some kind of a grander scheme, since they were framed or otherwise they were arrested for bringing the dragon head into the town, and the mercantile guild ended up taking it for some
Mm-hmm.
reason.
So I mean, we can take it from now. The players are supposed to take the cart, and we were talking about like an avalanche type situation, getting them to use certain things. I know we vaguely touched on it, um, but we can focus more on that. And probably the next steps that I would do is I would essentially set up the pacing steps. I didn't really go into it over the last few days, but I talk essentially, people talk about them scenes, but I go more just I want players to go from here to here, and from here to this happening. And in our case, it's we want the players to start taking over the cart, and we want them to get into town. And in whatever fashion they do it, kudos. Because I can tell you from experience, if you want your players to go from point A to point B in a straight line, you are sorry.
That will not always happen. Most of the time, it will not happen.
So, so in our case, I would say I would put down a note. Uh, Dragon cart. I would. What do we call it? A race or chase? Then we would go. What would happen after that would be a battle, because we were talking about things either getting thrown at it, or obstacles getting in the way. And then we talked about arriving to town, and then when inside of the town there was either a arrest or a social situation. And then at the end we were talking about how it needed a twist. So something that they didn't see coming, something that would leave them on a bit of a cliffhanger. We were talking about it either be the arrest or finding out about the goblins and kobolds, right?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, the arrest definitely would have been a twist, but perhaps to shortly thereafter be busted out by goblins, and then the goblins are the ones who reveal the true depth of the seriousness of the situation.
I would say that would probably be the opener if someone wanted to be like at least how I'm picturing it.
Mm-hmm.
They get arrested. That's where you leave them. And then the next session picks up with the goblins or kobolds breaking them out.
Ah, okay. So in this case, if you did want to leave it open ended so that it could go from a one shot into being more if the players wanted it, perhaps the jailbreak doesn't necessarily occur, or rather, the goblins break in and deliver the message, or deliver the enlightenment to the party. And then if the party wanted to actually do a jailbreak, that would be the strong action start that you were advocating for in the next session.
Yes.
But we still ended with a twist because they heard something pattering down the nighttime halls of the jail, only to realize that it's several goblins that have sapped their way into the jail or something to let them go. They drop this info bomb, and here the one shot ends with this knowledge. Will you get out of jail? Well, I don't know. That's up to the group.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I would say that would be a perfect end, the one that leaves them wanting more. And I think we have the strong impact because just walking into a dragon's head. I think we need to also put at the beginning. We need to give a reason why the adventurers are setting out this way.
Yeah, why would they be in the position to find the cart on this wintry road?
Mm-hmm. And we could take a note from Minds of Van Delver, that you could have them already going down the trail with a cart, that they've already been set on a mission. But hence the 3 Ys, and I'm using the reskinning by using another module, but we could start them off taking a cart to this town, and they come across it.
Pelicans asks, what if the party resists arrest? I know unless I put 100 guards in front of my players, they won't come quietly.
Um, the the thing is with that, even if they're fighting an arrest or anything like that, usually a very powerful sleep spell or other effects like that are usually uh, very common uh, to use it, not in my games, but at least an option. And there's plenty of other spells. Uh, Not to mention, people could be running around with immovable rods and essentially immovable rod handcuffs. But think about your guards or something like that, or essentially your policemen in a this fantasy world. What would be the reason that they could uh, take on adventurers and actually get them to go to prison or in like put them in a jail?
Consequences, especially enforced consequences by the DM, are very good at compelling people to listen to town guards.
And the thing is you can always take from other things as well. What was it, the Andy Griffith show, where he was like a cop,
Mm-hmm.
and like his whole thing, he didn't carry a gun or anything like that because people had to like him. So he was just like, hey guys, you just need to come with me. You just have to chill in a cell for a little bit. Who knows, that approach might work as well.
It would stand out, and it might diffuse a situation if the players just automatically look at any town guard as apparently just an immediate, jump to violence sort of a thing, to actually have a kinder one, or one that stands out as a more persuasive in some capacity, where they don't. Where they don't just immediately go for their swords or spears if someone doesn't listen to their every command, kind of a thing.
And I would say that's a good place for making two unique NPCs. You can have the guards being gruff, but then essentially the head, uh, I don't know what you would call it. Was it a chief at that?
Oh, well, I guess there's
Uh,
a lot of different titles that you could
yeah,
use for. Um,
but have them come up and be like the good cop, like just come in and just like, no guys, put your weapons down, follow me. Like right there, it gives the players an out if they get in a scruffle with the 100 guards and stuff like that. I know a lot of people would choose to go with that character, especially if they're very accommodating.
there's a couple little plot points that I want to throw in here, if you don't mind,
Oh, go for it.
that we were talking about in the build up over the course of this week to culminate here. As we are, I'm making a list of plot points in our one shot. We have our initial mission, placing them in the setting, and before we get to the dragon cart chase, this is the time to investigate. And that could be a skill challenge, that could be just, observing. That was the opportunity to find the note in the mouth, or maybe some other details. Were there other boot prints or footprints? Can you piece together what happened? Especially when you get weather or environments that lead to things like mud or snow. Mud and snow are excellent time capsules of evidence. Because if you know when the snow fell, you can understand, well, someone had to be here before whatever 9 p.m. when this snowstorm hit, because their footprints are filled in by snow. And so it creates an awesome investigation. I was talking about this throughout the week, the stack. If any of you have ever played Magic and you cast a bunch of spells back and forth in response to each other, and you build up and you build up and you build up, well, now you have the stack. And how do you resolve the stack? Well, you peel back one layer at a time to find out what happens.
First in, last out.
Yes. So we have our initial mission, placing them in the setting. You know, something's going to happen. We could make some other notes about an NPC they're traveling with. I think we talked about, might have even been a Nilbog that was brought up, that they're traveling with. Time to investigate when they stumble across the head. At some point in time, then there's a dragon cart chase. Although the chase could even occur, because honestly, what if they don't take if the party doesn't take the head? You know, we could still have a cart chase, especially if they've been given a cart, because you're talking about an avalanche, right, Technatron? So a cart chase is going to happen whether they take the head or not. And the battle can still occur because it's either the battle that's a running battle, if you don't want to include that as a part of the chase, or it's a battle after the chase is done, but some people come out and say, oh, that's a mighty fine, dragon head, or that's a mighty fine cart you have there, let me have it. They're victorious, they ride into town, because they're really going to have to go back into town anyway. At which point in time, whether they have the head or not, they could end up being arrested for possession of the head, or on suspicion of crimes because they understood from an informant that a dragon had been killed. And I saw that some people in chat were talking about, it might be a crime to interact with any dragons you find or something. And simply by coming into contact, you'd be arrested and held for questioning. You might not be there for torture or, to be hung, at dawn the next day. But then even before that happens, in the middle of the night, even if it's just for questioning on the next day and not to be an acorn on an oak, to use some thieves' cant for being hung, you have a jailbreak by goblins, and probably under the direction of the Nilbog that you were the Nilbog, because the Nilbog would have seen the head whether or not the party took it or not. And so the NPC could catalyze the adventure even if the party decides not to.
Well, and the thing is you're presenting a really great question there. It would be either what makes them take the dragon head, or what are we going to do if they don't? I would say something that would be a very interesting hook or twist. When they get into town, someone blames them for running their cart, their dragon cart, off of the road, because they are going to see this dragon head. And if they get placed with the blame for it being there, that might give them an opportunity to see the impact of that item, whether they take it or not. But we can also look into what could get them to take it.
One of the prompts that I think that you came up with was the cart that has the dragon head, at least partially on it when they find it, had a sign indicating that it belonged to one of the mercantile guilds, which then that dangles a carrot of money or opportunity or networking or favors owed in front of the party, especially if they are by default good guys. Bad guys might take it selfishly, but even good guys could take the hook too, because they want the reputation with the guild for returning their property, and or doing something with the dragon head too.
Well, and I would also know, at least in murder hobo territory, they might want to take pieces off of it. For some reason, skinning is a big thing, or taking teeth. So if they show up to town with the teeth or skin and people recognize it, that could be a indicator too. But yeah, we could even even next to those markings, we can leave a note. We can use the magic spell message, and maybe have a false promise on the dragon cart to return it.
Ah, okay.
Oh, we were talking about it, that the dragon head might not just be a dragon head, but a Dracolich head. So it is essentially an NPC itself, which I think would be interesting because that brings another element where you could get the dragon head talking and thrashing about. And that's something that could make sense in the world.
I think as well, just having the tongue animated or something like that was brought up as well. But yeah, having some kind of sentience or animation to an otherwise dead head could be another interesting twist. Of course, finding out what's in the note. You know, if we're gonna hide a note somewhere, like behind a tooth or something, or like lodged in the throat, something along those lines, that would be some content to go through. Technatron, would you be all right if we got up and took a little bit of a break?
Yes, that's totally fine.
And when we come back, what we could do, because we do want to talk about things like monsters, you know, creating a combat or the like, and NPCs. We have our plot points out, and now perhaps we can almost make this like an outline where in each segment we can go through and wonder about NPCs that should exist in this segment, monsters that should exist in this segment.
I 100% agree. I was leaning into if we do go the Drekulich route, we now have an intelligent NPC being. So that's a really interesting dynamic.
All right, then, everyone. Let's take about a 10-minute break. You know, get up, stretch, do what you got to do, and when we come back, I have all of our other documents that we've generated so far. Oh, hey, Bubonic One, thank you so much. And so what we'll do is we'll go through, and we have these plot points for a one-shot. Now let's flesh it out a little bit more, fill it in, and draw on the inspiration that we've been generating over the course of the week here. So as soon as I get my convention amount updated, there we go. Thank you, Bubonic. We're going to take a 10-minute break, everyone, and then we'll be back. Creativity sneaking in a comment right before break. Note under the tongue, maybe. It could easily be missed, but not the last place they'd look. And yeah, that'd be something to consider. How difficult would you want that to be? That is a good point, Creativity. All right, so we'll be right back, everyone. Hang in there.